Hi friend, I want to talk to you a little bit about something that has really transformed the way I interact in my business and in life. And that is the concept that rejection is really just redirection. By the way, I'm Sarah Turner. I'm a freelance medical copywriter and copywriting mentor. And this is something that I think is so important, especially as a freelancer and especially as a newbie freelancer, because it can be so overwhelming when you first get started and quite frankly, so discouraging to be constantly faced with what we tend to call rejection, right? A no to a proposal, a no to this, a no to that. And these experiences can be so deflating. In fact, sometimes it's the thing that makes somebody give up. And that is the biggest bummer to me when I hear people giving up, because there's so many resources, tools, and support out there that you can get when you're starting your own business. And in helping thousands of entrepreneurs start their own business, I've come to learn that this is one of the most powerful reframes you can integrate into your mindset and in how you kind of engage with life. Because I'm willing to bet that if you paused and thought about a life situation where you thought this was the right thing, you thought this is what you needed next, you thought this was the next step, and it didn't work out, and you were so bummed and so frustrated and very discouraged, but lo and behold, after a year or two or maybe more passed, and you looked back at this particular experience and you came to the realization that, wow, that wasn't actually the best thing for me. And I'm so glad this thing happened because it pointed me off into a completely different direction. And that is really powerful. You know, we love to say hindsight is 20/20, but it's important to remember that when we're living in the moment of the rejection, it can be hard and a new practice to remind ourselves that this rejection is truly a redirection and that ultimately it's going to be okay. And quite frankly, it might work out better than you could have ever imagined. So try to keep in mind that when you experience a rejection, it just means that there's an opportunity out there that's in better alignment for you and your future. I often remind myself that when I'm experiencing what feels like a rejection, that it's really just not what's ultimately meant to happen for me. And quite frankly, rejection can also be a blessing because it can be something that's closing a door for you so that you don't have to. Think about that for a second. Sometimes when the answer is no, or you're going a certain way and it's just not working out and you actually have to stop and figure out what to do and where to go next, it's actually closing a door that's bringing you closer to what it is you're meant to be doing. And sometimes that's a gift, because you don't have to be the one to say no to that opportunity or to bring on that client who isn't really a good fit. Because if a client, for example, is saying, no, we're not a good fit, even if you thought that you were, you both have to be in alignment for it to be a really good and beneficial relationship and ongoing business partnership. So sometimes these things are just not meant to be, truly. And if you get triggered by a rejection, that is a really important emotional reaction that's worth digging into and exploring. So I want to invite you to get really curious about what it says about some of the stories that you're telling yourself about who you are and how you show up in the world. Some of the common ones that I've seen are that we overly attach our sense of self-worth to our success or perceived success, or even just like our bank account, what we're earning, and how we're doing in our business. And that is actually really painful. It's painful because it's creating a lot of pressure on ourselves, and also it's placing our self-worth outside of ourselves. And that is so harmful, because even if you're doing really well and you're feeling really good and confident in your business, but something happens and you take a hit and you don't have a strong sense of self-worth, that's going to rock you so much harder than if you're independently working on your self-worth outside of what you do and how you earn money. Another example of a common story people tell themselves when they experience big triggers, especially around being so-called rejected by a client or an opportunity, is sometimes it's because they struggle a little bit with people pleasing and they feel like they have to work with every single client that crosses their path because of this, right? Even if this isn't something that kind of like runs your life, it's probably something that all of us can relate to on some level. because it never really feels good to have somebody say no or this isn't for me. But it's when it's a big emotional reaction or a trigger that it's worth looking into and figuring out what can be done here to bolster my sense of self-worth, my self-esteem, and where can the work actually be done so that this doesn't rock me as hard as it is right now. For me, some of my favorite techniques are morning routines, meditation, mindfulness practices, affirmations, and visualization. Those are some of the best, most powerful things that I've ever implemented to push back on some of these things. And so I want to encourage you to implement those too. And also, an important point I want to make here is that as you practice rejection handling or reframing rejection to be redirection, your muscle that's involved in this is just going to get stronger. It's a practice, just like anything else. And I think it starts with awareness, curiosity, and then actually taking action to pushing back on it. And when it happens and you experience it, and maybe you're triggered and you're disappointed that you're triggered because you've been trying to work on this thing, just reminding yourself that you're practicing working on this thing. That is so important. You're going to have days, for example, where you're more tired. And so things might hit you slightly differently. You know what I mean? Every single day, our best is different than the next day and the day after. It's always going to be slightly different. So just have some grace, be gentle with yourself, and truly the best thing you can do is ask yourself, where does this come from and how can I push back against it? I also want to remind you that sometimes a no to one plan can actually be yes to another. Just because somebody said, no, this isn't for me, doesn't mean that that's it, end of conversation. Sometimes it's just you may have missed exactly what that particular client is looking for. So don't give up so easily. Instead, if you feel deep in your gut and intuition that, I really think this is still the right direction to go, take a moment, give yourself a few nights sleep on it, feel it out. But if you still feel that way, maybe you just need to restructure whatever it was you presented to the client. That is oftentimes all that needs to be done. In fact, when you think of rejection as redirection, you're going to have the mindset that anytime something like that happens, it's just time to go back to the drawing board. Simple as that. It's also so important to remember that rejection is inevitable. It's absolutely inevitable if you are going to stand in the arena to be the person who's working on bettering themselves, growing their business, being an entrepreneur, and standing in that fight, right? And so just remember that if you're going to keep showing up, sooner or later, you are going to experience rejection, my friend. We all have stories of rejection. In fact, that is a sign that you're growing, that you're pushing into new frontiers, and that you're just fully living life, quite frankly. And then finally, keep in mind that each rejection is actually getting you closer and closer to the next yes, and to the next success, and to the next thing that is actually in alignment and going to be good for your future in the long haul. And so I just kind of want to leave you with, I've experienced so many rejections over the years, seriously, like ones that are embarrassing, ones that I look back on and I'm like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? But each time I've grown from it, I've looked at it as an opportunity to get better, to get stronger, to open my eyes to new opportunities, to new possibilities. And when you have that mindset, everything feels less dramatic, less difficult. You bring more ease into your business and you move through the world with a little bit more faith. And I've got to say, it is so calming and so much better to have that attitude and that mindset to kind of move through the world in. Anyway, hang in there. If you've experienced a big rejection recently, I feel for you in such a big, deep way, but you will be okay. I have overcome and survived and thrived some of the most embarrassing rejections. And so I know that you can too, truly. It feels like you're dying sometimes, but I promise you, you're not. You're totally on the path to a stronger, more realized version of yourself. So thanks for being here, friend. And if you like that, please go ahead and hit that thumbs up. It means a lot to me. And of course, please share in the comments. This actually came from one of your comments. And of course, don't forget to subscribe. It means so much to me. Thanks, guys.